Okay, now I want to get into adding fuel temperature and fuel to our fluid simulation. Let me go to my fluids here and increase the, I'm going to actually just, let's say, um, let's delete these two. I'll keep my curve. Let me delete my fluid container and create a new one. And I'm going to increase my base resolution again to 40 because I like that. I already have my curve in my scene. So I'm going to select my curve and my fluid container and then say emit from object. If it doesn't work, I have to go into my options and say I want to emit from a curve. Okay. And then what would be great is to go down to my fluid container here and I'm going to turn on temperature to dynamic grid. Okay, because it's off by default. Now I'm going to turn that on. And then I'm going to go to auto resize. And if I press play, you'll see automatically that we will get some kind of fire effects here. If I take my color and turn this to black, now you can see that this incandescence for my temperature is already working. Okay, and now I have a kind of fire simulation. Now, does it look perfect? No, it doesn't. I think some of the initial smoke isn't great, so I might want to go to my fluid emitter and at frame 1 put my rate down to like 10% and then increase it at maybe frame 20 up to 50% and set key. And now I might have a little bit of a better simulation for the fire. Also, to really simulate fire, I might want to change under my fluid container and go to my temperature controls here. I might want to let the dissipation increase. So I have all of that. Right, so now maybe that's giving me a better simulation. Let's add some noise, perhaps. And now I get a kind of crackling. And then what's really going to make this really pop is to mess with the ramp here for my incandescence. So if I go to my ramp and I can adjust just what this fire is going to look like. So I can make it really fine tune the appearance of it. Maybe here I need that blue color, right? Perhaps. I don't know. Oh, not there. Down here by yellow. Let's bump up yellow. And fire always is kind of blue. But anyway, we can play around with all of that. And so you want to set this to temperature. We want to set our color constant to be black so we don't see. We could also set this to, a kind of gray, a darker gray, perhaps. But these are all your kind of choices. And this is if we want to make something realistic. Of course, we can make something like totally experimental and not trying to really realistically depict fire. But so for example, I can go to my ramp here and get rid of all of these under temperature. And instead, now I'm going to make perhaps like a blue fire, blue to purple. And I might want to add some turbulence to my emitter or some speed. I can add some speed to my emitter, my initial velocity in a different direction. See what that if that does anything. Or go to my emission turbulence and turn up the turbulence here so that as it's being emitted, there's some turbulence added to the emission. I can also, this is just my emitter, but go back to my fluids here and under dynamic simulation, maybe I want to increase the viscosity. Or let's see, some friction perhaps. I can damp the overall appearance of this if I'd like. What other things I can do? Go to my density maybe and change my density scale. Maybe add some tension to the density and add some noise to the density. So I still will be working with density and velocity and then also I have these, and turbulence, and now I have these new parameters here for temperature that I can play with. So this is really fun. I hope you enjoy like messing around with this. The last thing I want to show you is if we add some fuel to this fire. And to do that, what I want to do, so to create a kind of explosion effect, the first thing to do is to go to our contents method and turn on fuel to dynamic grid. And then if I go to my fluid emitter here, what I want to do is let's delete these, break this connection of these keys. So I'm not kind of having a slow burn fire, but instead I want to like build up a ton of heat and then blast it off and explode it from this curve. So what I'll do is I will actually set the rate here to like 500% and set a key. And then, or even better, let's build it up even more. Let's go to a negative value in our timeline. Let's go to -4. And at -4, let's set a key for 500%. And then at frame 1, we'll set a key for 0%. And let's see if that does something. No. Okay. I need to have my timeline maybe at -4 to be able to see it. Or maybe it doesn't want me to do negative values. Okay, forget that. Let's go back and let's just go from, oh, that's why. I maybe could do -4. -4 and to 200. And so at -4, I want to set my key here. Oh, fuel off is 0. Dynamic grid. Let's go to my fluid emitter. And again, let's delete these keys. And at -4, let's have 500% emission. And then at frame 1, let's have 0. Or let's do 500 here, 500%, and then at frame 2, we'll drop it to 0. So that should really build up a bunch of fluid, and still doesn't really love that. And let's see why. Let's go to our fluid container here, and I think I need to turn something else on. Okay, my fuel is turned on, and it's because this, let me get rid of this auto resize temporarily, and it still doesn't love it. Fuel scale, reaction speed, color, incandescence. Let's break this connection. Let's just start at frame 1. And I don't know, maybe the negative values, it's not liking that. So frame 1, I'm going to say 500%. Frame 5, I'll say 500%. And then frame 6, I'll go down to 0. And now we'll see that we'll get an explosion of heat, and then it will dissipate out. And so that's how you can kind of create. And if I add things like my speed, let's add like an initial velocity. We might even want to maybe go to fuel method to be, let's say, replace 100. Let's just see what this does. Voxels a second. I don't think that's doing what I was hoping it would do. Let's break this connection. Maybe we really want to have our starting rate to be like 1,000%, or let's go to off here and let's see. we're kind of getting what we want, you know. I mean, it's not really building up a lot of our heat. Let's go to 1,000%. That's a little bit better. And then let's also do this at maybe 1,000%. Doesn't look maybe any different than what 100% would be. But that's just giving you some kind of, that just gives you an idea of how to create an explosion. You are going to want to, maybe we want to like increase the turbulence. Let's go to our fluid emitter here, or fluid container, and fuel scale. Ignition temperature, oh, here we go. Let's increase that. Let's see if that does something. Fuel air ratio, let's increase that. Let's just increase all of these. Heat released. Max temperature. Ignition temperature. Reaction speed. Fuel scale. I bet if I increase this by a factor of 10, maybe that will do something. These all kind of are starting to look the same. So I think playing with these, let's see, temperature scale. Let's increase the temperature. And that's a bigger, it's got something else going on now. Pressure. Oh, wow. Okay, that'll do it. Pressure does something. Right? So maybe not that much. And these are things you can key. So it looks, it does have kind of a cool effect. Okay, so that's how you're able to use temperature and fuel to kind of create a fire simulation. And maybe at this point I will go back to auto resize. And it's almost like still like resize closed boundaries. I don't want any of these boundaries to be, I want boundaries to be none for all of these. I don't want any of these to be boundaries. Still is kind of giving me a box. It's almost like too fast to even be able to process where the boundary box is. I'm going to go to my display here and turn this off. Okay. What else? What do we really like here? What was good that we could do? Temperature. We increased the pressure. Fuel scale. Maybe I'll drop that back to 1. I don't know if that did anything. Heat release. Wow, that's better, right? That did something. Maybe. Hard to say. Max temperature. Fuel air ratio. Okay, so those are some of the things we can mess with. And then of course we can maybe change this back. Oh, incandescent temperature to fuel. Let's see what it looks like if it's just under fuel. So this is a way we can visualize just the fuel, right? So you can set any of the inputs. So what this is, what channel these color values are attached to. So I can set it here too. I can say I want the fuel color to be like bright red. And then I want my incandescence to be for temperature. And so that fuel, when it initially comes out, has that kind of red value. Let me get rid of this. Maybe it'll be even more obvious, right? And I feel like one of my boundaries is still on. No, it's not. Let's have some dissipation. Okay, tension force, increase that. So again, just like mess around with these settings and create some play blasts. Also, again, the last thing I want to show you before we end is when you're done with your fluid, select the fluid container when you like it and it's completed. Go to End Cache, Create New Cache, and say Maya Fluid Cache. Okay, then here, of course, I didn't save this to my project folder, but you will be saving it to your project folder, and it will all of your caches will populate in your cache folder. And then here you can say like fire or whatever, and then it will create the cache, and then it doesn't have to simulate it any longer. So it will just already be an animation that's already kind of set. So it doesn't have to calculate it every time you play through your timeline. It won't have to calculate the simulation. It will just play it. Okay, so I look forward to seeing your play blasts from this week, and enjoy messing around with fluids.